we do have to touch on a couple stories we've heard. And I hate this when it came out. You were the one who broke the story to us. And to be fair, you mentioned this several months ago that potential something could happen, but we didn't know what was going to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Jim Harbaugh suspended for the first 4 games, or for 4 games to start the 2023 season. Alex, practices tomorrow. Like, what does this mean?
Well, and so I got to look into this a bit more. I don't know. I think it's one of those things kind of like when a player gets suspended. For example, Jameson Williams has gone the first 6 games of the season. He can still do training camp.
Yeah.
So I'm like, can Harbaugh still coach fall camp? Can he get these guys ready to go pretty much up until like the week before the game, and then he's just got to like leave? If that's the case, I'm not. Well, either way, I'm not really worried because Sharon Moore, the assistant head coach, who's also the OC and the O-line coach, might be a little bit too much on his plate. But he's a guy that's ready to be a head coach. So this will be a good showing for him, a good test for him. And I think we'll be okay. And like you said, I brought this up months ago. I was hearing 6 games minimum back then. So to get 4 games and the 4-game stretch we have, this is essentially a slap on the wrist. This was everyone can see 4 games. Oh, you got a solid punishment, but this is 4 home games, 4 games we should easily win.
Yep.
And it's a slap on the wrist for a team they didn't want to take out of potential championship contention.
Right. And when I first heard this story, honestly, the first thing I thought was, well, are Blake Corum and JJ McCarthy sitting? Because if they're not sitting, then I really don't think this makes that big of a difference. And I mean, you alluded to the 4 games they play. Who are they? I know one of them is UNLV. I think Rutgers is one of them.
Yeah, so we open up against East Carolina, which, I mean, they tend to give teams some trouble. I think we'll be just fine. Yeah,
last year's team gave them some trouble.
Without Holton Ahlers, Keaton Mitchell, those kind of guys, I think we're okay. Then we host UNLV the week after. Then we host Bowling Green, and then we host Rutgers.
Yeah,
I think we'll be okay.
yeah.
Now Rutgers the last few years has given us a run for our money for about 3 quarters.
Right.
So this will be a game where people will kind of start to be like, oh, is this the one that drops before Harbaugh gets back? We'll be fine. They just got to remember every year Rutgers kind of gives us a scare until partway through the 3rd quarter. We'll be fine.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking. In fact, that's what I talked to you about. I was like, that's the only one where it's like maybe I'll hit you up that day and maybe you'll be a little tense, but at the end of the day, you'll get the W, you'll pull away at the end. Oh man. And then he comes back and right in time for a couple pretty decent matchups, if I'm not mistaken.
We go first road trip here right when he gets back. So we go to Nebraska and then to Minnesota. So 2 kind of like, we don't know what Matt Rule is going to have for Nebraska.
Right.
They do have a month to get ready, like a month to kind of get into the swing of things before that game is played. So Nebraska they can punch you in the mouth early. And then you never know how that game could go. I do still think we'll be fine. And Minnesota, it's a tough place to play. Little Brown Jug, it's a rivalry game. So, I mean, that might be their national championship this year. So, I mean, you never really know.
Yeah. Because
those are games I'm glad to have Harbaugh for. That's all I can say.
Right. Because, I mean, let's be honest. Outside of Georgia, the biggest target is on y'all's back.
Yep.
You know, the last 2 years, like you said, only Georgia has had a better record in the last 2 years. You know, you have most of your guys back. Blake Corum coming back, Donovan Edwards, and JJ McCarthy. You know what the offense could do. But, you know, let's see. Hopefully there's no little slip-ups in the beginning. We both talked about where we thought it was going to happen later down the line in the season. Hey, we'll see. This is going to be interesting. So real quick, for those who don't know, if you could tell us what were the reasons that he was suspended? What did those come from?
So there was an investigation back in January over some recruiting mishaps back in the kind of COVID dead period. So right when COVID hit and they were shutting everything down, you weren't allowed to talk to recruits. Mm-hmm. And there were people on his staff below him that were texting players, calling players, talking to players when they shouldn't have been. And then there was, I saw that there was part of the investigation was he was out for like out and about with a recruit and bought him a cheeseburger meal, like something small like that. But the part that's getting the suspension here is he lied about it and tried to cover it up, tried to downplay it. So that's where the 4 games comes in.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, like we've said, the 4 games are pretty winnable, and like you said, you don't know. We don't know if he'll be out starting tomorrow or if he'll be out starting game 1.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Right.
I'm gonna go with he'll be there for fall camp, and then as soon as it's that fall camp cutoff, regular season starts, he's gone.
Yeah. So, we'll definitely see. Don't think this should be too much of an issue, but time will definitely tell.